Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Professor Hamamoto. It is Wednesday, January 13, year 2021, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I'm here today with a very special guest who also is a Patreon patron. Is that correct?
Yep.
And you go by the name of, please introduce yourself.
Yeah, I go by DKode. That's kind of like my cultural works identity, as you know, it's not that uncommon to do so. So yeah, it's kind of a play on my name, and it's also a word that's just popping up everywhere, and it just felt right.
Well, I got the reference right away when I heard your tunes. You sent me 4 tracks, and then you did the courtesy of sending the lyrics, which I was following quite closely, and it all came together. So you are really you're decoding with the secret state, the deep state, the new world order, however
Correct.
you want to call it. Is that correct?
Yeah,
So,
go ahead. Yeah, I was
oh,
just
go
going to
ahead.
say it's a culmination of a lot of different input, and hopefully every line gives basically it has a nice punch, no filler, right?
Right.
Much like writing a book that has kind of like a encyclopedic tone or something like that. But it's also I can use pop culture references, get inspirations from presentations. Um, that's kind of usually how the format starts. And you were kind of asking me about what my process was, so I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit. Um, I'm a graduate of University of Oregon. I studied anthropology. It's been quite a while since I've been in university, but I consider life, a continuous education. And we all, and people in my case, we got into quite a bit of debt during those times, right? And you kind of look at your experience or your educational process as like being complete. You get your diploma, you're off on your own, go get a job. I took basically what, Google videos, YouTube, around the 2009, 2010 period. I feel like it was like that hot time, right? Where like if you knew where to look, you could pretty much find everything. So I've been kind of in this arena now for a while, kind of holding back my public insertion, let's say, but the time was right. Funny enough, the Buffalo guy, if we're not careful, he's going to steal all our thunder, right? So it's like, it was just kind of one of those moments where it's like the tipping point, where it's like the kind of normal presentation in the sense of like, let our facts, let our skills, let our art do the talking. It doesn't need to be this big showy thing. So those are just kind of little points of reference for you.
All right. And I note that you were inspired by the Thursday trios with G Dub, John O, and myself.
Oh yeah.
Can you
Yeah.
explain
So
how long have you
I've
been
been, yeah,
following the group?
right. Yeah. I've been following the group for a long time. Kind of the same story a lot of us super fans of George say, it's like something about his story really captivated me, and I could go into why that personally it touched me or whatever. I'm originally from the Washington, D.C. area. I
Oh,
attended Catholic schools growing up. I worked in Tyson's Corner, Virginia for a recruiting company. You could see kind of where I had a lot of things going into this already, and the analogies they
mhm.
use about the trellising and the foundations of kind of putting it all together. And it's almost like the bad signal was put in the air for folks like us to all unite with something, right? And perhaps maybe that McDuff story kind of does tie it all together. And for whatever reason, they don't seem to hack the accounts as bad when it's a McDuff oriented subject matter. So maybe that's a
Right.
little bit of a safety net, perhaps, as I've followed the whack-a-mole going on right now.
I think you're right, and it's also, and this is my strategy. It's also a good approach to use the cultural politics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's how the other side got to where they are. They started attacking it from the culture,
Yeah.
and they got that from Gramsci. You're an anthropology major, so you probably caught the reference. Cultural revolution, and
Mm-hmm.
cultural takeover.
Right. And
So,
that's kind of the linguistic part of anthropology, as you know, one of the components. And that's kind of where my work is, where, my pen is pretty sharp, as they say, the mightier than the sword. Well, then what's mightier than the pen is actually getting your work out there. The analogy I kind of use, it's like in music, sometimes you have like a guitarist who just wants to solo, right? And they can never really join a band because they can't keep it together. It's like, what good is my work if it's just collecting digital dust? So that's kind of another reason why I'm kind of bringing myself out to some degree, because I feel the timing's right. I think there's formats now that I feel like censorship isn't just going to destroy me. And I think I'm going to be pretty clever in how I approach that fundamental problem with bringing cutting edge information out. And aren't we all just addicts of that anyway, right? We want it.
So use a specific example about the technology being right at hand. You sent me the material, through email and attachments. I listened to it, and then right away I just put some beats together and I emailed it back to you.
Right.
And then you edited it and then put your own spin on it. So hey, there you go.
Right. That's
within 24 hours.
Right. And that speed of collaboration, that's 2021, right? Like we can embrace that kind of stuff. And
yes.
And I also kind of want to just touch on like the speed in which that took place is because I'm not focusing on fine polished things necessarily. It's more the speed in which to get it out. As we know with information, sometimes there's only that 48-hour window before all the cover stories start coming out. It's like, what if that's all we have with the song or something? It's like, you just got to get it out there. And I just want to remind people, and I'm happy to kind of break down how easy it is to do what I did too. You may have heard the song and been like, what, how did you do that or whatever, right? It was this simple. I recorded your track. I replayed it in just watching a video, any of the ones, VLC or whatever, and just slowed it down a little bit. Because I was like, it's kind of a fast pace. My type of lyric scheme, I really want to enunciate. So I just slowed it down, re-recorded it.
Per minute. More like 60 beats
right,
instead of 120. I gotcha. I'll
exactly. I mean, but I like just taking whatever I'm given too, and just kind of molding it into whatever's necessary. And that's kind of the beauty of the collaborative effort. And that's kind of why I love the Team W Osprey research kind of community here. As you're basically, just as well as anyone else. I mean, it's inspiring. We finally found our tribe or whatever, and it's kind of past that little phase of excitement and like, what do we really have here? And what we have is a lot of talented people all over the globe. People are taking note. So I'm excited.
And January 6th showed, I mean, if people didn't already realize it, on January 6th, it really hit home, with the Buffalo Boy and everything else, that this is for real. This is not no live action role play.
Right.
This is true politics.
Right. Executed. Yeah, I was just going to say,
from the DC.
Executed so well. I mean, it was like they played us pretty good. Like we all were there ready.
Well, why don't you give me an analysis of that?
Yeah.
What was your take on that?
Yeah, so I considered going to the charrette myself. I wasn't able to make it, but I knew somebody that attended. So it was like one of those degrees of separation. If we're detectives, we want to get to the source. And luckily, I mean, I trust that crew. So I'm going to trust their analysis, the video. It's not like they're editing anything. So, I mean, I counted about 6 to 10 separate but connected operations that had some sort of signal.
Wow.
Whether it was like, they heard a cannon of some sorts, the orange hats, the putting the hats away, the flags, all the camera work then needed to be backed up. Getty already had some of the photographs for sale, like right away. So to me, it was, as soon as I saw Buffalo Boy, I'm like, there's the op. Watch. This is going to be the focal point of this whole thing. And little did we know how far they were going to take it. It was almost mind-blowing. And so that was just one little aspect of it. But I just feel that multiple operations, small little units that knew exactly what they needed to do at a certain time. Cameraman then gets it. throw it on the mainstream news and just press repeat, right?
Mhm.
A lot more to that, but that was basically my overall understanding.
Now, do you agree with G-Dub that that was run out of the Fourth Army PsyOps division?
I mean, it was done
That,
so well. I mean, and to comment a little bit of like, is there some big Trump operation kind of going on? One thing that I kind of look at when it comes to these operations is the leak factor, right? If it doesn't have any leaks, that's impressive to me because we dig, right? We tend to find anything a little bit even beforehand sometimes, but for these two things, they're pretty tight, be it either the fourth operation or this Trump thing, you know, the patriotic, whatever. Both are kind of airtight right now. So, I mean, at the very least, I can say these are the two warring factions, perhaps. This kind of like, we're waiting to make our move and you're using every trick you got left. I mean, that's kind of a smart tactical maneuver to kind of make sure your enemy's out of bullets. But this was kind of a serious one, but we survived, I guess, right? So perhaps there is kind of this unfolding next couple chapters that unfortunately it feels like we can't really participate in. I mean, we can offer our analysis, but I feel like we're left in the dark, and there is kind of a bitter taste in my mouth that we're just supposed to kind of wait this out.
yeah. Well, there's not much time. I have not been watching the follow-up on the Alex Jones show, but I did watch yesterday's show, and he was a participant. He helped fund it, as you probably know,
Mhm.
and he was right there as our man G Dub was there with his crew, just right in it, right in the midst of it, right in the
Yeah.
mix. But Alex Jones says that Donald Trump, as commander in chief, has called us. I don't know what the proper term is, but a state of emergency, because they're rolling out the whoever it might be Big Army or you know Alex Jones has a favorite enemy called the Chi-Coms. I don't know, or Mercs,
Mhm.
right? Blackwater type
Yep.
people. So what's your feel? I mean, you're you know we have some distance now, and we're seeing all the data points starting to emerge. And I think Alex Jones is a reliable reporter in
Yeah.
that regard. Even though I don't agree with his overemphasis on the Chi-Con. I think it's a domestic operation, and they help to provide the money and the backing. So
Mhm.
did you watch? Let me ask you this: have you watched the follow up on the Alex Jones show?
Uh,
Because he's the
yeah,
person with the most
yeah.
influence.
One thing I wanted to mention as it relates to kind of this, the top 10, let's say, influencers of the moment, right? And wasn't there some sort of
Mhm.
prearranged meeting among all these top influencers days before this event? Do you
That I
recall
don't
that?
know.
Like, yeah. So, I mean, I'd like to kind of confirm whether that happened or not. Because to me, it's like, there's your chance to kind of make sure this is going to run smooth, right? I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like it was just no one with a normal voice that can kind of get people's attention. Like, where were they during that moment? And another moment that I'd like to mention too is the Jericho March that took place before. You know, you had like General Flynn speak, and there was like a presidential flyover while he was talking. Really cinematic, almost, right?
Right.
And it's like there wasn't necessarily that moment to this one. It was just more chaotic, or at least, I mean, there was the peaceful elements, I'm not disagreeing with that, but like
Mm-hmm.
what we're left with, the court of public opinion, I think generally speaking everyone would say that it went awry, and we're kind of embarrassed as a citizenry to some degree.
Right.
So I'm kind of wondering, I noticed during that first meeting, I was kind of screenshotting these little videos, and there's a photo with Alex Jones, Michael Flynn, and Patrick Byrne. And all three had their own mercs, right? Their own personal security.
Mm.
And you can see a
Yeah.
definitive difference of appearance among each kind of crew. So even within these influencers are some of these kind of merc elements, the security for the influencer kind of thing to keep people in
Right.
check. So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of where I'm at on that element. They're very good. I
Okay.
mean, So
I'm not defending him or critiquing him. I'm just trying to flesh out from your perspective what you saw on your end. Now, Alex Jones has been riding around in the MRAP for the last 2 years, right? Going to
right,
different,
the freedom-mobile thing.
right. And I know that he has, and now he's a lot more open about it. He has contacts at the highest level of the White House, including access to the. I don't know how frequently he's in touch with him, but I'll just ask you flat out: do you trust him, or do you trust any of these three people, and to what degree?
Yeah, I trust that they're going to provide me the intel that I can analyze. They're
Okay.
I call this the truth tap. Like it's always going. It's up to you when to put your glass in there. And I've been following Alex Jones now since about that period, that 2009 period. I've seen
Hmm.
all his stuff. I look at him as, if you know how to filter it, could be the best. But at this point in my research career, I only really need to listen to him maybe an hour a month. I have other people
Right.
that give me kind
Yeah.
of little, and being a music guy and some of the work that I do, I like these little sound clips where little morsels
Right.
get dropped, and I'll throw them in a song just in case they get censored, right? So
Hmm.
there's kind of that element to Alex that I'll always enjoy. I think he's, you can love or hate him. He's an excellent entertainer.
Right.
He's funny too. And he brings in a lot of eyeballs. So everyone seems to have made an appearance on his show. If you're anybody, you probably have made it, as you have, and it's like, so is that a way to blacklist you forever because you're on Alex's show? Perhaps, but you get,
Mm.
marketing factor essentially. So there's a place
Right.
for him. I'm kind of curious what's next after Alex. He's kind of been the straw man
Yeah.
now for so long. Trump
Right.
and him kind of,
Right.
so who's next if this kind of, steal or whatever you want to refer to does kind of transpire and we end up with Biden, and who are they going to yell at? It's going to be maybe an opportunity. I don't know.
Mhm. Well, I appreciate your moderate approach and suspending your disbelief rather than saying he's a shill or he's 100% good, because we see how easy it is to fall in that trap with everybody hurting in support of so-called QAnon.
Right.
And I know that as of yesterday, Alex Jones has denounced the whole QAnon, not the people in it, because he says he got suckered as well, not by QAnon, but by the
Mm-hmm.
whole scenario. That's what he's claiming. But he's repudiated. Before he was kind of open to it, but now he just claims it is a elaborate, very well financed and executed, as we found out, psyop.
Right. And
Who's running it, we don't know yet. But
I
your comment,
yeah, and maybe you can match
QAnon,
match me on who we think it is or what's behind it, right? I mean, I've been saying this
Mhm.
now since the beginning. This Michael Aquino,
Oh,
everything about
really?
this to me, he may be dead. I still, there's been some
Yeah.
things that seem like he is, right? But all his books, all of this to me is just the perfect roundup, right? And if you look at some of these generals that are promoting it, they work directly with him.
Yeah.
And I think I've sent you some of that,
Oh,
info, and just maybe in some of those Thursday trios. Maybe you don't see it, I don't know, but I mean, I've been throwing that question out there, and no one wants to
yeah.
touch it for
I
whatever
didn't
reason. And
see
I know
it.
it's a serious,
No, I didn't see it.
yeah. Do a
But
compound
now I'm
search.
tuned to it. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah,
To the
I think
Aquino connection.
just a
Yeah.
little bit of compound searching is gonna. He
Okay.
like Valley or whatever. I don't know how to pronounce it
Oh,
correctly.
yeah,
And
yeah,
McInerney,
yeah.
those two, do a compound search with Mr. Aquino and tell me what you
Yeah.
find. And
All right.
funny enough, Chris Milligan and LaRouche have wrote on this specific kind of collaborative effort with these guys. So here we go, right back to the people we talked to, Trine
Well,
Day
now,
and
Chris,
LaRouche.
so Chris Milligan and Trine Day, this was the publisher of my most recent book. I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I did.
Yes?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So that's an interesting connection, and I know that, and he wouldn't be upset if I shared this with you and whoever's watching. But his father was also in the Alphabet Agency himself. He comes from that family,
Yeah.
right? So.
Yeah,
connection.
I know one of his relatives here in town, Chris's.
Well, he's outside of the Eugene area, as you know,
Yeah,
right? That's
he's
where he's the opposite.
yeah, I know exactly where he's
Are you
at.
still?
I'd spoken with him once before. I called him directly about this Aquino question. I was like, is he dead? Can you confirm it? You know, if anyone can, maybe he can. Because I was doing these compound searches and it led me to, it's funny, it was like some message board or something. He even has like an AOL account. It could sell, it's like from like 2000. So
Yeah.
I was like, if anyone can confirm it, maybe he can. So that didn't stop me
Well,
from, yeah.
sure. Well, that's research. I mean, you call it the source. So, are you still in the Eugene area,
No,
Oregon?
I'm about 45 minutes west of the Portland area, and but I travel all over the state all the time, so I get to check in with people, and
So
it's
you're
kind of
still in the
cool to just
Pacific Northwest. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, but when you mentioned Aquino, it does make sense. It goes back at least to that pamphlet or that booklet that he wrote called Mind War, right? I
hmm
think it's available
yeah,
online for free. I mean, it's a PDF or something. But he articulated all this because he was one of the sort of the second generation out of after Stanford Research Institute and that who were bringing those insights. He was operationalizing all that psychology and the paranormal and remote viewing and bringing it into the U.S. Army.
right,
So I
and
see him as sort of a contact point between that world and the military.
right, and he at the time modernized like kind of that next chapter, that next phase, that next rollout, and I mean, when Mr. PS, I'll just use his initials, did his little shimmy shake during his deposition, Mr. Thunderstruck, that to me are they the third chapter to this? Is this fourth psychological division basically that third step, one step off of Aquino? So is this,
Hmm.
I mean, kind of them too? All the benefits of this Q thing that maybe there are some benefits of. It kind of got the conspiracy cats to all herd together a little bit for a little. I mean, that sounds like a roundup to me. So I don't know. They could let out just enough to keep the attention and basically rope everyone in. And I mean, then you look at these social media kind of things that are popping up just out of the blue and then disappearing, and you got to show your ID, and it just seems like a 1, 2, 3 to me.
Well, Patrick M. Byrne also comes out of that Stanford South Bay Area milieu, right? Where it's basically
Mm-hmm.
Pentagon Valley or DARPA Valley. They call it Silicon Valley, but it's really DARPA Valley. And Aquino
Right.
came up through that whole Bay Area scene, just sort of in the
Yeah, the
aftermath of
whole
counterculture, right?
right,
So
and I mean
there's
the
also,
Presidio story, all that. Yep.
oh, absolutely. Yeah, I'm quite familiar with it, and people can find all they need to online about that. There's a whole volume, which I do have, that there's a cover is him and his wife that talks about the Presidio accusations specifically. I don't know if you've seen it, but so I'm going through that. I know the story, but I want to hear it from his side,
Mm-hmm.
how he presents his own defense,
Yeah, I've always
and so.
wondered with Mr. Byrne, overstock of what? Like, where is your stock come from? It's just kind of,
Yeah.
with all the research that we've done, I mean, it's just kind of, I don't know. He just is,
Now,
I've never,
how did Patrick Byrne get such quick and ready access right to the commander in chief, Donald Trump? Do you have
right.
any idea? Because it's
Um,
very difficult to read. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
supposedly he's isolated around it.
I think that a lot of, if there is any kind of operation going on, he's using his properties as headquarters. And a lot of these interviews that Byrne's been doing has been from Trump Hotel DC. So I think the who's who of this kind of like, where's everyone at, is probably at Trump properties, would be my guess.
Hmm.
His interviews have been
So, but
conducted there.
how did he make the
But
contact
who
with?
brought him in?
I mean, supposedly they're
Who
meeting.
brought him in? I would assume the Flynn element of this whole thing. He seems to have attached himself to that crew, the like Powell. But I mean, back to the kind of Q crowd, they kind of roped that world in there too. They started doing Tracy Bean's Code Monkey on Twitter, like retweeting them, and they just kind of combined it into a forced snowball, I feel like. And then they were like, all right, let's see what sticks. I mean, who's going to be the best hopium dealer, essentially? And everyone else can just melt away. And no one really has any questions. They just disappear. I mean, that's kind of what it seems like. Everyone's using their last card or whatever, their last interview or theory. And then it's like, now what? So that's when it's time for the musicians.
Well, absolutely, to put it in proper perspective. But before we move back into the music realm, I don't know if you saw my posting about Melania Trump or not. I put it out there, the headline, homage to Melania Trump, but it's not superficial. It goes, I mean, that's the face I'm presenting, but if you look at it, I'm positioning her as the heir to a bloodline, Middle European, Serbian, or not Serbian, but Slovenian bloodline, via ancient Roman times all the way through Austro-Hungary.
Yeah, I caught the presentation.
Yeah. Who is non? She comes from this bloodline that wanted to have independence and not be aligned with either the Soviet bloc or the U.S. bloc, and they were the original.
I found that a profound observation.
Oh, you saw that?
The what was it? The non-alignment. What is the name of it? The
movement. Yeah, the non-alignment
movement. Correct, movement. And it's basically. And part of the reason why I wanted to reach out to you so bad, I was like saying prayers. Someone on Team W, like Mark or somebody, needs to do a deep dive on Melania. It's like she basically was untouchable or something. Like that, no one wanted to quite, like maybe I'll say the wrong thing or I don't know. There was like a fear around it. And when you did it, I was like, all right, he's the guy I need to talk to. He gets it. He knows that's the missing ingredient to this right now. Filling people in, like she's been there the whole time, folks. And, it's just kind of, it was very.
It wasn't Buffalo Boy. It was the Melania Nas breakdown of mine that had you come forth.
Yeah, it was like the bitter taste in my mouth from just getting that propaganda thrown in my face and then seeing the kind of like request granted in such a nice way. I mean, there was a number of great, profound points that I want to look more into. And I come from a Polish heritage. So like this Slavic history, maybe even if I can just tempt you with a comment on the whole Tartaria kind of thing going online,
Hey, knock yourself out. Go ahead.
It's like, I feel like that kind of showed up out of nowhere too, to kind of bring up either insight about maybe free energy devices, a hidden history, etc., which ties right into this Melania's bloodline. So perhaps there's a little kind of fun and games or some truth kind of leaking out as a counterbalance. Don't push it too hard or we're going to release this stuff. I mean, I kind of look at it as this next generation warfare, like Prather kind of discusses and things of that nature. I mean, I grew up around that stuff to some degree, where I grew up, and I see where it's going. And this is kind of how things are fought now. A picture can mean 1,000 things now. What does Trump's shadow look like? There's a million ways to kind of play a little, visual kind of hint or breadcrumb nowadays that, even an IP address or embedded code. I mean, there's all kinds of things going on out there. And hence my nickname here, DKode, like DKode. Somebody's got to be looking for that, and it needs to be one of us. And that's kind of where I put my foot down. I'm sick of the hopium dealers. You can't sit back. It's like George says, Team W, go for the win. And we're not really satisfied. And even if we did win, like we're not going to just quit. We might just take a deep breath and bandage our cuts and bruises. But I mean, here we are, and we're here to stay. I represent the next generation of this, and here we are.
You certainly do. That's why I reached out to you. I said, hey,
Yeah.
you got to be on the interview. Now, you're from the DC area, and you know that John O'Loughlin's father was in FBI/CIA. He might have been seconded to the different agencies. So he was working for the government. That was his career. So we either one or both of your parents working for the government
My
or an
father
agency or
was working with housing and urban development, ironically, about the same time as Catherine Austin Fitz. So that's currently something I'm looking
wow.
into. Yeah. Uh, yeah, there was a lot of military around. Like my grandfather served in World War II. My uncle was a state trooper in New Jersey. But the people I grew up with were a lot of military legacy, um, including admirals, grandsons, and things I mentioned in some of my songs, um,
Uh,
who worked with John's dad. So on Leyte Gulf. So there are
uh,
some things I hope to add to this conversation by introducing relatives of some of the people. If grandpa won't talk, then maybe grandson will, kind of stuff.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well,
As I understand.
if you're not already in touch with John, I'd be glad to make the introductions so that he can gather more biographical information about his own father and the larger story,
Yeah, I
if you
mean,
like.
it's basically there's one introduction that I am just hoping to kind of get confirmed, but this person is kind of so high profile and kind of back to the silence, no leaking kind of vibe. Like growing up where I did,
Uh,
I know contacts all in a lot of the agencies, and all of them are just a ghost, which kind of gives me a little bit
yeah,
of hope in the sense of like if something's going down, I don't want it getting leaked. So one of these individuals kind of might be a little preoccupied right now, but at the same time, I do hope to make that connection for him because there's got to be something of value there. And this story is big. I mean, if the JFK stuff's not going
yeah,
to come out till late 2021, we're going to put
yeah.
together our presentation. I'm only just this tiny little support group in the back, but a million little, types on the keyboard all breaks down to a nice finished, book. George has got now a couple different interpretations of this JFK story and all the different elements that still are alive today.
I just got my color version of this just yesterday.
Yep.
Oh yeah, he's doing it. I
Yeah.
mean,
I hope to get mine.
they kept pushing
Yeah. I
him
hope to get
through.
mine soon.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just saying, I hope to get mine soon. I sent some money with somebody to the charrette to get a signed copy. So it's on its way
Oh,
back. So I'm super
you're getting a
excited.
signed copy. Excellent.
Yeah. So,
For you.
yeah,
Well,
it's
let me ask
kind
you,
of,
as an artist, as a researcher, and just talking to you like this and reading your material that you sent to me, and you're right on top of it. And plus, you have some personal context that you might be able to get some information. And you studied anthropology, and you came out right before the breaking point, right before it all kind of busted open, right?
mhm.
And I'm sure you had your suspicions even when you were in as an undergraduate, right?
Yep.
But what does it feel like to you as a young man living through this in 2021? Because a lot of people are freaked out. You seem to be embracing it, the chaos and the
Yeah.
uncertainty.
I
What is
think
it about you?
I'm a rare specimen and I was made for this moment. It's, it's just, I mean, to be honest, it's like the whole Trump thing. I kept telling people this is what we kind of deserved, right? Like it was such a pay to
Yeah,
play, fake you. It's just fake you very much culture. Um, it's going to catch up with
yeah,
us. And if this guy
yeah.
did anything was pulled, the Toto moment. It's like, how many times did the screen get pulled up in 4 years? Me and a friend of mine put together, what are the bet we were going to do a Hall of Fame psychological operations of the past 4 years, like best top 10. We ended up with like 40 different things. And we were just
Wow.
like, this is just over 4 years, right? So it's like this guy was jumping rope and dodging landmines. And I mean, something
Yeah.
was behind him helping. And so I just kind of, knowing the military contacts that I have, I'm not saying I'm some I know it all secret info kind of thing, but if they're not freaking out, then why should I? I mean, I'm still going to do what I do, but there is kind of some like canaries in the coal mines out there that you can still maybe find. And I'm just not finding any of that really. It seems to be more bracing for something more than I need to like, separate myself from the military and go ghost, right? Like there is kind of this, I'm sure you hear it sometimes, people think it's like they're going to be the apocalypse. I'm going to sell my property. I'm going to get a mobile vehicle. I'm going to move somewhere and it'll be fine. Like you're asking me, what do I think about right now? I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to use this awesome inspiration to make songs that are just like, how did he think it? What, I want to basically keep that conversation going of this declassification, the exposure. Give us the iPhone 2021, not the, you know what I mean? Like the 50-year, everyone knows, the government's got 50 years in advance, it's just like, all right, like how long do you need to squeeze us out on all this? When are the flying cars coming, but there's a way to kind of maintain this ancient and modern lifestyle. And that's kind of what I'm most interested in, is kind of blending traditional living, but utilizing some cool modern perks. And that's just something, it's kind of an Oregonian kind of way, to be self-sufficient and stuff. So I think people in the Pacific Northwest are a good example, generally speaking. I know Portland gets basically, they're the Buffalo boy for Oregon. Everyone just talks about Portland, but the state has the most extreme conservatives, as well as the most extreme liberal views. So it's kind of nice for a guy like me to get that inspiration too, to kind of see it from both perspectives.
Well, I was in Salem not long ago. It was already the lockdown was happening, and I got a very good feeling in the capital, right? In Salem. It's kind of nice up there. I didn't make it up to Portland, but you're right. I understand the not just in Oregon, but also Washington State, right? California, that's where I am, and it's pretty much of a goner. But you alluded to a friend of yours where you made this list came up with 40 different attempts, right? So you do have friends? You have people you talk to about these
they're
issues?
basically, they're all Team W folks that just basically are like just low key, but like you would know their names. I don't want to like name drop them right now, but.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? They're on top of this for the same reasons we are. And we're basically just bouncing observations and analysis pretty much all day long. And then there's just kind of a bit of digestion. But, I'm kind of doing something with it. I'm kind of taking all these pieces and putting it into art, because otherwise, I mean, it's just bouncing off our heads, right? Like you're an author, you do media stuff, you know how that works. But it's like, I kind of challenge everyone to find something that they can use this and present it as a craft, because it does just feel so good to just when people understand what you're trying to do. And it's intentionally supposed to be profound. It's not supposed to be calm and tame. This is supposed to be profound intel. But if it's in a comedy or something along those lines, perhaps we have more of a lasting shock. It's not just shock value, right? And that's kind of another element. Where's comedy right now? So I kind of hope to enter into that realm too. And I have some ideas I'd like to share with you when it comes to that too, of just how to counter censorship in those regards.
Don't tell me you do stand up?
I do impersonations.
All right, that's even better.
Right. So that's one way I feel like you can get around censorship. If the impersonator's saying it, then, and then so like algorithms, how are they going to know who's going to show up? So,
are you a student of the great American impersonation artists like we used to see on the variety shows or late night TV, like Johnny Carson?
It's a timeless form of comedy, right? It's a timeless form of comedy. So it's like I kind of
Hmm.
look at these things that have staying power and try to involve them into my act or my media or cultural works. And a lot of that is kind of these booms of music, right? Certain elements of jazz, the soul, funk, reggae kind of era, the early days of hip hop, the golden years, 1994 to about 2001. Um, in the indie rock scene, 2009, 2010. So it's like I like to look at things about 10 years later when it comes to music, so you can kind of see if it had staying power. I'm not necessarily
Right.
chasing the new, even though there are some artists that I really like. So it just
Mm.
kind of gives you that ability to do the analysis, so that you don't end up kind of just not really knowing where it came from or the inspiration behind things.
Or just letting it wash over you. Yeah, I'm only
Mm,
now beginning to seriously sit down and listen and study Metallica. It's like what, 30 years later? But
right.
that's not my era, but I feel that they had something important to say. Same with Trent Reznor and Nine Inch Nails. I mean,
Hmm.
he's peaked so far as being the bad boy, the guy who's living in darkness, and to now he's pretty much part of the main. He makes soundtracks for giant
Right.
movies, right? So
Yeah. So
now I'm looking at that.
could I say a little
Pardon me?
something on Trent Reznor, just a tiny bit
Ooh,
on Reznor? Yeah.
oh, knock
So
yourself out.
I'm 38, right? So when I was
Okay.
probably like seventh or eighth grade, that album with the song "Closer" was like the first dirty song, right? That was like "I Want to F You Like an Animal" song. Remember that one?
Uh-huh.
Like that was
Yes.
like the first like keep your kids away from that song. So he has
Yeah,
everyone in my
yeah.
generation knows who Trent Reznor is.
That's why I raised his
Hmm.
name because I said, hey, that's your era,
Right.
and that's it's out there. So whether you like it or not, it's part of your milieu. So
Hmm.
yeah, you were what, 7 years old, 8 years old in
I
D.C.
Yeah, whenever I need to look at when that song was out, but it was kind of like that seventh or
Oh,
eighth
okay.
grade range where like you wanted to listen to
Oh
some,
yeah, junior high.
yeah, play the dirtiest song you
Yeah,
can. And so that was
right.
definitely one of them.
For
But
me, it was Louie Louie. Louie Louie.
yeah,
Like all the kids were going out saying, "Hey, do you know the real lyrics to Louie Louie?" We would try to figure it out because it was so dirty. But yeah, I know that really pivotal moment in a young
hmm
person's life. But you know who else is from DC? What's his name? The guy that has his own publishing, and he was in the punk era. He's before you. I forgot his name. DC. There's some interesting people that come out of DC area.
yeah. I
Black
mean,
Flag. Who's the lead singer to Black Flag?
oh, I forget their name, but
That's
is that
that's
who it
before
is?
you.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But he's very Americana. But the reason I mention his name is that he's been pretty much absent from the scene during the whole Trump period of time, and I would have thought that's his man. I
Right.
mean, he was way out of sync with the dominant, tend to be leftist type of alternative culture,
Oh,
right?
yeah, for sure.
Name, it's slipping my mind, but I thought you might have a take on him. Who else is exciting to you right now, so far as 2021 is concerned?
I know some people aren't necessarily as active, like they're not, they just drop stuff. Like I like some of these performance artists, like the event where folks turned the Hollywood sign and Trump sign, the artist Sabo.
Yeah.
You probably are
Oh, yeah,
familiar
yeah,
with
yeah.
his kind of like that kind of stuff to me. Oh man, there's a couple graffiti artists that kind of do similar type of stuff, but I kind of like I'm at times I absorb and I absorb and I absorb, and then other times I just kind of put a pause on all my influences and collect my thoughts and then make my
Mhm.
music. And it seems to be like these little hot streaks where you're ready to just pump it out. And I'm kind of like in that mode right now. Where I like, all right, I got enough info in here, time to release the pressure a little bit. Um, but a hip hop artist that I'm really enjoying is Freddie Gibbs.
Oh,
Um,
okay. What's the name again?
Freddie Gibbs,
Freddie Gibbs.
his most recent two albums, um, especially the name of the album, I can't think of it right now. Not his most recent one is called Alfredo, and there's one before that. And basically, I really enjoyed that album and all the way through. And I believe it to be a whistleblower album actually as well.
Oh,
Um,
really?
because he's basically describing the hustle if you sign the deal, what happens. And I'll
Oh,
send you a couple tracks that I think kind of decode what's going on there. But he managed to stay
okay.
relatively independent while sounding and looking the part still. But
I
it's a
see.
very interesting album from that perspective. And I've been waiting for someone to tell that story because it's a dirty business, as you know, the whole infiltration of hip hop. Like we could talk about a whole nother show or something, but the whole
Yeah,
Biggie and Tupac thing is still an unsolved mystery, right? And my
right.
generation, during that same Trent Reznor time frame, there was
Yeah,
the hip hop brainwash kind of thing going on where all the white kids turned like they wanted to be black kids. Tommy Hilfiger and Polo
right,
Sport and loud stereos and all that.
right.
And basically the goth and the hip hop kind of line got drawn, and the grunge was in
Uh,
there too. But I mean, those were the big three in terms of like the three kind of somewhat subcultures that you could be a part of. So it's definitely
uh,
important.
absolutely. And you're the person to put it into proper historical and cultural historian perspective. We're depending on
Thank
you
you.
for that through your music and through your, I didn't know you did impressions. Is that what you call it? Or impressions or impersonations?
Yeah, impersonations. I kind of like what I like to do is like the one I sent you where it was like the instrumental of Under Pressure, and it's the
Yeah,
Biden
I like
family
that.
talking about all their problems. So
Is
like,
that you?
well, no,
Really?
those are sound clips and just
That's what I thought.
mixing, but
Yeah.
imagine an impersonation on top of that. So it's
Oh,
like
I see.
using the impersonation as almost a musical act as well. Imagine some
I see.
characters that we all know and love singing a song that kind of would be funny if they sang it, you know? So,
Okay.
yeah,
I get it now. It's not just the stage, like the lounge acts that you used to have in Las Vegas, right?
hmm
With an, I guess this whole set of the celebrity of the moment. You're putting it sort of like cutting it up and mixing it into other forms, like the music,
right.
right?
Yeah, so
Like the
it's
hip
like
hop.
that. That's like what I like to call like the D cut, which is basically cutting things up and dissecting it and deconstructing, and then finding just these like, what did he say? That sounds fake. Like, I want to find true things so out there that are actually real and kind of get them into a song because it's like to be able to describe all these things to somebody is always too much. I've been doing it my whole life. But a song,
Yeah.
and you send them the lyrics, especially because I'm trying to pack a lot in there, and so
Hmm.
that's kind of the medium right now. I feel like a 3 minute is about all the attention spans people have. The beat's got to be catchy.
Yeah.
Like you got to check all the
Yeah.
boxes nowadays. But
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
one thing people are kind of being okay with is lo-fi. Lo-fi is
Oh,
okay
yeah.
right now. It
Absolutely.
doesn't need to be super polished. So I'm like, perfect. I can just
I'm
get it
going
out
back to
there.
cassettes. I'm going back to
Right.
cassettes. That's me.
Yeah.
I mean, they even have the
Yeah.
software that makes it sound like an old vinyl. You know that, right? All the
Right.
snap graph pop. So I
Right.
understand the aesthetic.
hmm
Absolutely. Well, let's see. We're drawing. So anyway, let me give you credit here. Is that your concept? D cut?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard other people kind of like throw like a sample from a movie or a documentary or something, but I've never
Yeah.
seen a matching like song title or theme of a song to match what then the news clip is about, then an impersonation on top of it. And if anyone else wants to do it, go for it. But there's a profound
Right.
magic in that stew that I just is like, this is
Right.
funny, entertaining, informative, and I'm bobbing my head to it.
And
So,
instructive. It's
right.
highly instructive too.
hmm
No, I just wanted for the historical record to give proper credit where it's due. If you came up with this concept, you've heard of bricolage and automatic writing and all the different radical ways of trying to do art, right? Combining and
Hmm.
recombining and all that, remixing, right?
Yep.
Cut and mix, but this you call this decut
Yep.
from decode.
Hmm.
All
And
right, it's yours. You
deconstructing
own it.
all
Right,
anything.
deconstructionism.
Yep. So that's kind of where I'm at.
Oh,
Mhm. I'm excited for
excellent.
the
Well, I think your
future.
anthropology background really came in handy, came in
Yep.
use, right? Because you got to see how human civilizations and tribal all the way to this advanced societies put things together and create meaning out of
Right.
it. So
Hmm.
anyway,
Yeah. I mean,
before
look at linguistics and language. It's just, root words, Latin base. I mean, all of it can be continually deconstructed like a mathematical equation. And
right,
eventually you get down to the things like everyone burps, everyone farts, everyone laughs, everyone hiccups. When you yawn, doesn't matter what language, or you can pick, so there is some kind of connection that we all can share through
yeah,
just certain things, clapping, laughter, whatever. So I, it's all
absolutely.
about the unity, information sharing, collaboration. So happy to be able to speak with you tonight.
Same here, but I can't end this cast before we get one impression from you. Your choice.
Okay, how about this one? Professor Hamamoto, we got Alex Jones here tonight, and I know it's been a while, but we got him back on. He's talking about a new YouTube channel. He's going to bring you the cutting edge information. He's got a guy on here tonight called DKode. There's a DKode. What do you think?
Excellent, excellent. Well, there's a vacancy in InfoWars, and I think you're the ideal person to fill it if you
Yeah, I
want
mean, you
to. I don't
motivated
know.
me when you're going to put that the education resume in. I'm going to put the Alex Jones resume in.
There you go. I think so. Hey, I might make it yet because Miss Blackwater resigned a couple days
Yeah, I
ago,
saw
right?
that
Eric Prince's sister.
vacancy.
Yeah, so there's a vacancy. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I'll be like like for 3 days, the Secretary of Education. Unless, of course, the Trump administration goes into the next phase, which, strangely enough, even at this late date, I think it's going to happen. And I think it's going to happen because Melania Knobs Naus Trump is going to step forward and make the nation weep. She's going to make us
I
cry.
would.
She's going to get us so emotionally. And it's like, you have a Polish background, it's the Central European soul. And
Yep.
so does Trump. Remember, it goes to Germany. It's like there was a discussion in the early age. Is Germany really a European country? They thought it was so alien. So I think, talking to you, Melania Trump, Donald Trump, which is the original
Hmm.
family name, that's the trifecta right there. And I
Yep.
thank you for coming on such short notice. And we'll be working together. And I'll introduce you to John if you want. I mean, you might
Yeah,
know
that would
him,
be
but
great. That would be great. And
okay,
I thank you for reaching out to me and getting back to me. It's been an honor, and thank you very much.
great. Thank you very much, Decode. We'll talk to you later.